It began, as so many modern stories do, with curiosity. A simple box, a small tube, a little bit of saliva, and a promise to uncover who you are. Millions of people around the world were drawn to the same idea. With one test, they could trace generations of ancestry, uncover lost relatives, maybe even find clues about their future health. Among them was a man we will take with the name JL for this story. Like millions of others, he ordered a kit from 23andMe, the company that promised to make genetics personal. He mailed it off, waited a few weeks, and then came the mail that everyone looks forward to. Your results are ready. He opened it, and there it was, a map of his ancestry. Northern European roots, a hint of Ashkenazi Jewish heritage. Possible cousins he never knew existed. JL smiled. He'd learned something new about himself, but he had no idea that the same data, the most personal kind imaginable, would soon become part of one of the most disturbing data breaches in recent memory. In October 2023, a quiet post appeared on an underground forum. Someone claimed they had stolen genetic data not from a hospital, not from a government database, but from 23andMe itself. At first, it sounded impossible. 3andMe, after all, was a trusted name. Founded by Anne Wojcicki, the company had built a reputation for innovation. Millions had sent their DNA to their labs. Millions more had opted to connect their results with others through a feature called DNA Relatives. That feature, meant to bring people closer together, would become the very weakness that tore the platform apart. Investigators soon learned the truth. Hackers hadn't broken into 23andMe's servers in the traditional sense. They hadn't breached some hidden vault or cracked advanced encryption. They'd used something far simpler, credential-stuffing. That means they took usernames and passwords leaked from other websites, tried them on 23andMe's login page, and watched as thousands of accounts opened like unlocked doors. It started with just 14,000 accounts, but 23andMe's network of DNA relatives meant each one of those accounts was linked to dozens, sometimes hundreds of others. Through those connections, the attackers quietly siphoned data from nearly 7 million users. Names, birth years, locations, ethnic breakdowns, photos, family trees, even genetics matches, the very map of who's related to whom. What came next was even darker. The hackers didn't just steal the data, they organized it. They began selling special collections on the dark web, lists of users with Ashkenazi Jewish or Chinese ancestry. They advertised it as curated genetic data. To many experts, that detail was chilling because it suggested not a random crime, but a deliberate targeting of ethnic groups. Suddenly, the promise of genetic exploration had collided with the politics of identity. What had been a harmless curiosity and a fun weekend experiment had turned into something far more sinister. Inside 23andMe's offices, panic turned to damage control. The company first downplayed the incident, saying it wasn't a hack at all, just users reusing old passwords. They emphasized that their own systems hadn't been breached, but the public didn't see it that way. Because when millions of people's genetic data appear for sale on the dark web, it doesn't matter how it happened. What matters is that it did. The company's response, blaming customers, only made things worse. One executive even referred to users as careless and dumb for reusing passwords. The backlash was immediate. For many, this wasn't about passwords. It was about trust built on something deeply personal, now broken. The scale of the damage grew clearer by the day. People found their profiles mirrored on hacker forums, bundled into spreadsheets labeled Jewish data, Chinese users, 23andMe ancestry dump. It wasn't just numbers, it was identity. families, lineages, history. Experts warned that once genetic data is exposed, there's no undoing it. You can reset a password. You can cancel a credit card. But you can't change your DNA. You can't replace the data that defines who you are. One cybersecurity analyst put it bluntly, "This isn't just data theft. This is genetic theft." As lawsuits piled up, regulators began circling. The UK's Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and Canada's Privacy Commissioner launched joint investigations. In the US, class action suits accused the company of negligence. By mid-2024, evidence mounted that 23andMe had failed to implement standard protections like mandatory two-factor authentication before the breach. In June 2025, the UK regulator fined the company over $2.3 million, citing a profound failure to safeguard sensitive genetic data. The ICO's statement was scathing. Genetic information is immutable. Once exposed, it cannot be changed or reissued like a password or a card number. For 23andMe, the damage wasn't just financial. Its once shining reputation built on science, innovation, and curiosity was now shadowed by mistrust. By 2025, the fallout was severe. Investors fled. The company's stock collapsed. At one point, its valuation, once over $1 billion, dropped by more than 90%. Users began deleting their accounts en masse. Reports suggest nearly 2 million customers requested that their data be erased from 23andMe's servers. The company that once encouraged the world to share their DNA was now fighting to convince people to stay. Even as it restructured, even as executives promised reforms, one question lingered. Could 23andMe ever be trusted again? For people like JL, the answer was simple: never. He remembered how excited he'd been to explore his ancestry, to find distant cousins, to learn about himself. Now, that excitement had turned into a quiet dread. He thought about the data, the strands of his DNA, now somewhere online, connected to his name, his face, maybe even his relatives. And there was nothing he could do to take it back. In interviews, users described the same feeling, that they hadn't just lost control of their data, they'd lost control of their story. The 23andMe breach wasn't the largest hack in history, but it may be one of the most personal, because it forced the world to confront a question warily asked. What happens when the data we give away isn't just information, it's us? The hack was a warning shot to an industry built on trust, convenience, and curiosity. A reminder that in the digital age, curiosity can have a cost, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. So before you send away your DNA, before you click "I agree," before you spit in that tube, ask yourself, do you know where your data goes? Do you know who protects it? And most importantly, do you know who might be watching? Because in the story of 23andMe, science wasn't the villain. Complacency was. And in the end, curiosity didn't just uncover who we are, it revealed how easily we can lose ourselves. In a world where the smallest vulnerability can expose the deepest secrets, cybersecurity isn't optional. It's existential. That's where Tileris comes in. Tileris isn't just another cybersecurity company. It's a movement toward intelligent defense. By combining AI-driven threat analysis, behavioral monitoring, and adaptive data shielding, Tileris helps businesses anticipate breaches before they happen. Whether it's a biotech firm holding DNA, a startup guarding customer data, or a global brand managing user trust, Tileris builds walls that think, react, and evolve. Visit Tileris.com to learn more. The 23andMe hack reminds us that the human genome may be unchangeable, but our digital defenses don't have to be. With Tileris, your story stays yours. Your data stays safe, and your future stays protected.